I can't even close my mouth when I die. It's the folklore that the dead have an unfinished hospital. This is to help the deceased fulfill their wishes. Can't be buried rashly, otherwise something will happen. My grandfather's dead body is dirty. I asked Uncle, but he was severely reprimanded by the uncle. Tell me not to talk nonsense. Second uncle takes advantage of the fact that there is no one around. Put a hot towel on Grandpa's cheek. I want to make stiff muscles soft. The good monk drew this hot towel 3 times in a row. Mouth is closed, but it's crooked. Yiwu people are in pain again when they see this scene. The uncle and the second uncle take turns in Lin Qian's craftsmanship. Only I, 81, are expensive in Lin Qian, and no one can persuade me. So Grandpa kept it in the main room for 5 days. But on the day of the illness, Grandpa's mouth opened again, and it's bigger than the previous one. Everyone was horrified to see this scene. My uncle and my father discussed it. Decided to go up the mountain to give the organs as originally planned. The strong man in the village, with the crackling sound of firecrackers. 4 strong men shouted loudly. All I hear is the crunch of the rope. But the 4 of them couldn't stand up straight no matter how they squatted. The coffin can't be lifted, so I added another rope. 8 people play together. The coffin is still motionless. In the end, my dad knelt directly in front of the coffin, kowtow and say, "If you have any other wishes, I dream for my son at night. You won't go like this. Are we all restless?" The uncle and the second uncle also knelt and kowtowed. There was a lot of crying. Hang up too. This kneeling coffin was easily lifted. My dad is worried that things have changed. Hurry up and protect everyone up the mountain. All the way, I saw that my dad didn't even dare to come out of the atmosphere. Staring at Grandpa's coffin, I am afraid that the old man will not leave if he is not happy. Fortunately, the coffin went in smoothly. Nothing went wrong in the middle of the mouth. That night, I slept in the room where I used to sleep with my grandfather. Remembering that I will never see my grandfather again, my tears started to flow. In a daze, I saw my grandfather leave. He lay next to me as before. I rubbed my eyes and looked at my grandfather carefully, but found his wide mouth and face. He's still wearing a buried veterinarian. I screamed. Open your eyes. Fortunately, it was a dream. It's still dark outside the window. I reached out to touch the phone by my pillow. Check the time, but I felt a cold face. Turn your head slowly. Drop. What caught my eye was Grandpa's big mouth. 8 of the Iron Elves. I'm not dreaming. My grandfather is really back. Uncle and uncle came over. When I saw my grandfather's body, I scolded him. Which is the ghoul who chopped off the skull? Get out of digging people's old houses. Now what? And my dad said, okay, he has no backbone now. Bury it in before dawn. Don't alarm others. Second and third, the 3 of us carried father's body to the grave. Uncle ordered, although no one said, but I know it all. When this happens, it must not be fooled. You can't fight, and you can't let others know. Otherwise, the villagers will definitely gossip. Captured the backbone of our family. Wait until the cemetery. and there was no sign of the grave being dug up. There is only one hole in the top of the grave, just enough room for the next person to come in and out. The second uncle frowned after seeing it. Wait until someone robs the tomb. Must be digging from the outside in. Then the opening of the grave should be large on the surface and small inside. It's getting smaller, but Dad's grave obviously has a big opening inside. Small opening outside. That is to say, this hole is dug from the inside out. The words of the second uncle made the place present. Some people get a chill. The uncle said, "Don't talk nonsense." Could it be that Dad? I crawled out of the grave by myself, and they went home with a dark face. Obviously still worried about Grandpa. The second uncle said to go to town to find a feng shui gentleman to see. Uncle decided to go to the cemetery for one night. See which one is not long-eyed. Moved by Grandpa, he still believes that someone is messing around. Although I am afraid, but still insist on following. After all, this is my grandfather. I couldn't have seen his old house abandoned. My father saw that I was resolute, didn't say much. After dinner, we went to Grandpa's grave. It was just dark at this time. Uncle and my dad found some firewood nearby. Then a bonfire was lit not far away. 3 people sit around a fire. I don't care about the heat at this moment. Besides, I don't know why. The weather is not very hot today. Even sitting by the fire, I still feel a little cold in my back. I don't know if my dad and uncle are like this. I'm afraid to ask, afraid they worry. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me. I immediately went back and yelled hello. My dad pulled a torch out of the fire. Walk in the direction of the sound. My uncle and I stood by the campfire and looked at me. I'm a little anxious. Grandpa's grave may not be peaceful. But it's so late. Who will come here? Stop and don't run, I heard my dad yell. Then he went into the jungle. The fire in his hand is getting farther and farther. My uncle and I sat by the campfire for half an hour. But my dad hasn't come back yet. I'm starting to get a little anxious. Uncle got up and told me I was going to find Mitty. If I don't come back in half an hour, you go home first. I'm the only one left in the cemetery. I hold the phone in my hand. Check it every once in a while. The next time is already after 11 p.m. Uncle has been away for more than 20 minutes. I started getting more and more scared. Kill, kill. Suddenly, I heard a voice from my grandfather's grave. I was so scared that I took a few steps back. I didn't see anyone there. The rustling voice kept ringing. Could it be that Grandpa started digging holes in the grave again? Is he coming out again? I was so scared that I knelt directly on the ground. Kowtow to Grandpa's grave. Kowtowing and crying for Grandpa. The grandson is here. What do you have to dream for the grandson? Don't come out and scare people anymore. It really worked when I cried like this, but not once. The rustling sound sounded again. This time, no matter how much I cry, it's no use. And it's getting louder and louder. More and more urgent. I saw my grandfather's grave. A head with a wide mouth slowly emerged. The iron cyan face is straight at me. After I shouted, I don't know what happened anymore. When I woke up again, I was already lying in bed at home. My mom was sitting on the edge of the bed, sobbing under her breath. The uncle and the second uncle sat by the door with their heads bowed, smoking a cigarette. I suddenly realized what my dad asked. Uncle took a shoe from his waist. Sadi chased after him for a long time last night. All I saw was one of your dad's shoes. No one was found. The village party secretary has also launched the whole village to be injured. My uncle testified that my mom cries even more. Just then, a strange middle-aged man walked into my yard. My second uncle stood up immediately when he saw him. If you win, go up and say, "Old classmate, you are finally willing to come." The middle-aged man sighed. Shaking my head, "I don't want to come either. It's so big. I can't come. Please withdraw all the people from Songshan." Under the greeting of this strange middle-aged man, everyone went to my grandfather's grave. This middle-aged man seems to have some fame. Many villagers know him. Call him Mr. Chun. My mother didn't agree to evacuate everyone in Songshan at first. Reply, but after knowing that this is Mr. Chun's request, I agreed with Mr. Chun to come to the cemetery, walked around my grandpa's old house. Then he pinched his finger. Tell the villagers to keep 28 men. Everyone else goes back. Mr. Chun took another look at my grandfather's death. He lamented and sighed several times in succession. Take some copper coins from the cloth bag. One for each of the 28 strong men. Ask them to keep it in their mouths. And say to them for a while, no matter what happens, don't speak. No speech allowed. After speaking, Mr. Chun knelt directly in front of his grandfather's grave, kowtowed 3 times and said that the uncle who stopped work was unfilial. The next generation, Chen Enyi, saved lives, come to disturb. If not, a lot of cold. After saying that, Mr. Chun threw away the 6 copper coins in his hand. Then he bent over and took a closer look, shaking his head. Repeat the previous action. Bent over and looked. Shake your head again. Mr. Chun is like this 9 times before, and after tossing copper coins. In the end, it was bloodless. Pale as a dead man. After the 10th time Mr. Chun kowtowed. There is no more good words to persuade, but pointed at my grandfather's grave and scolded. If the imperial court, do you really want to break off your son and grandson? If not, you give a good omen to the future generation. Finish. Mr. Chun threw the copper coin in his hand again. Just landed before. Mr. Chun couldn't wait to bend over to see. This time his face finally eased a little, as Mr. Chun waved his hand. Trouble with an order. When they heard those 2 words, they all turned on their faces. Even the second uncle is the same. Apparently no one thought. Mr. Chun prepared so much before. It turned out to be 4. I thought Mr. Chun was staying. So many people. It's to clean Grandpa's old house at home. But I never expected him to dig. My second uncle's face is a little ugly. My uncle is even more direct. He also pointed at Mr. Chun's nose and scolded Lily. But Mr. Chun is determined to dig the grave. But why? He doesn't explain. Just to my second uncle, I said that if you don't want your 3rd child to die, dig the grave. As soon as this comes out, my uncle and second uncle have no temper. Hurry up and call everyone to dig a grave. An hour later, the silly Buddha outside was finally dug up, revealing the coffin inside. Mr. Chun glanced at the coffin, and then I jump off in the startled eyes of everyone. Lying on the coffin, Put your face on the coffin. It seems to be listening to the beautiful sounds in the coffin. After about a minute, Mr. Chun jumped up. Hastily point to the coffin, okay? Hurry up and switch. Hurry up and switch. The moment the lid is opened, everyone can't help but take a sip. It wasn't my grandfather lying in the coffin. It was my dad who disappeared for a day.